3, 2, 1, and we should be live. Mr. McWombles, you want to go ahead and start the intro?
Thank you very much, Matt. Good evening for everyone across Europe, and good morning for everyone in the States. Very special episode of the Beerumverate today, thanks to the generosity of Mr. Mitch, who, based on that, let's make him the official co-host of the show. Well done, buddy. We have Matt. How's things in Las Vegas?
Hot as shit. That's why it's so dark, because I've got my blinds closed, but not too bad. I'm doing pretty good.
Mitch, how's things in nearly Canada?
In nearly Canada, I have a little bit of the sniffs, so I apologize for my funky audio, but you know, I'm gonna power it through. Not like one Mr. McWombles, who may or may not have been captured by the Yakuza as an excuse.
They were a marvelous series of video games.
I'm also playing full McWomble with tea.
Before I introduce our very special guest, just to get through, we are the Beerumverate. We are a group of guys who like to talk about good beer and video games. We are not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. Any beers or brews we may talk about aren't sponsoring us, but if you fancy doing it, cheers, buddy. Right, now to introduce our very special guest. Again, thanks to the generosity of Mr. Mitch. Some say that it is the power of his intellect and the heat generated that has caused global warming. Sorry, I just missed something. Something we're going to get onto later on in the shows. We're talking about the state of the video games industry. Something I can't stand is sycophantism. So anyway, here is an industry icon who should be, I don't know, he should have a name of a town named after him. Sod it. Let's rename Pennsylvania Satterfieldville after this man for being such a great human being. I mean, my God, could anyone be better at anything in the world? Is Mr. Shane Satterfield.
I want to be on this show every week, man. Can I pay you guys to be on call so when I'm feeling down, he can just do another intro for me?
Yeah, we're trying not to balls it up next time as well.
Record them in advance and just send them to you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It's awesome. I love this podcast. I love all the SIFTD community podcasts, and it's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. So thanks for having me.
Right. Thank you very much. Right. He says that now. Do we? Are we going to get into beers, or do we want Shane to spend a lot of time talking about his choices? Matt, we've heard enough about your bloody Teneo Creek and Big Dog. They don't even serve big hot dogs. What's the point?
I mean, I can talk about mine if you want me to, but
no, not really. Mitch, let's hear about your tea.
It is a fruit tea, McWomble, because it has to have lemon in it, so my voice will be okay. As a former singer in college, you got to learn how to take care of that voice. And yeah, so I went tea, but I also do have, because I can't drink right now because I'm on call for work, but I did bring my hangover drink that I drink when I have a hangover. So when I choose to do the thing McWomble tells me to do, which is to drink responsibly, and when I choose not to, this is what I drink. It is by, oh shoot, I got to turn this. It's a by, oh geez, the lighting's horrible.
Orange grapefruit?
This one is grapefruit, yes, pink grapefruit. They have a couple different kinds. Cherry's pretty good. They have like a dark cherry. It's really low on sugar. That's the biggest thing for me, is doesn't do well when I have sugar, and I want something caffeinated, and a lot of it is built-in antioxidants in it, so it helps really kind of flesh out the area. Obviously drink a lot of water, but if you want something with a little more flavor to it, I recommend that, and I just drink it casually occasionally because it tastes really good. So
someone told me that Pedialyte, the stuff for babies,
yeah,
is the best hangover cure. I've never tried it, but I have a friend who is a heavy drinker who swears by it. I mean, he's like, dude, you've got to try it. I'm telling you, it'll blow your mind. I'm like, really? Like baby stuff? He's like, yes, Pedialyte works great. He says there's something in it for babies that actually works great for hangovers. I just take an Advil before I go to sleep, and usually I wake up and I'm fine.
Yeah,
you have a friend, Shane?
I do have one or two, believe it or not. Not as many as I used to have since I started SIFTD, though. I'll say that much, because I'm not out and about like I used to be. I'm just working so much that I don't get to socialize as much as I used to.
But you have celebrity lurkers, though. That's kind of the same thing.
I guess. Most of my friends are scattered all over the place instead of just being in LA. I've lived so many different places that I just have friends everywhere, which is really cool, honestly. But yeah, I do have one or two friends.
Right, Matt. Who posed the question to Shane? And let's let who asked him about what are your kind of go-to beers? Please, for the love of God, don't say Bud Light. Otherwise, I don't know. I'll just have to leave.
Can you even buy Bud Light over there?
Oh yeah,
they sell it.
Yeah. Is it,
people buy it?
They have a special piss water section of the supermarket where it's
where there's a big wall of it. So, do you guys want me to share my my beer picks?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it,
please.
Okay, so to start off with, I just want to say I do not drink a lot of beer anymore. And I know that's sacrilege being on this podcast. In my 20s and in college, I drank a lot of beer. Before I was allowed to legally drink, I drank a lot of beer. Then I got into like my mid to late 20s and I started drinking liquor. And then it was like 50-50. Now I mostly just drink liquor. So I just want to get that out there. But at one point in my life, I was a serious beer connoisseur. And so over my lifetime, I have found that certain beers work better for me for certain situations. And that's how I'm going to give you my favorite beers. I'm going to tell you what I like to do and then what beer I like to drink while I'm doing it. So first, exercising outside. So playing golf, like when I would play street hockey, anything where you're exercising outside where you get hot and sweaty. You guys may hate this pick, but my pick is Coors Light.
Oh. Come on! I know you're a football fan, but no.
No, I don't even play football, honestly. But I drink Coors Light because I never get drunk.
And
it's just pretty much
going to go with Miller.
And it's pretty much all water, and so therefore you stay hydrated while you're outside exercising. And by the time you get to like the end of 18 holes, you've typically drank around 10 or 11 of them or something like that. And then you probably have a little buzz. And then you go into the 19th hole, which is the bar there, and then you tie one on. But when you're out on the course, you want to stay with it at least a little bit, because when I play with my buddies, we'll bet money on holes and things like that. And plus, just for bragging rights, you don't want to get your butt kicked. So I try not to get too hammered when I'm playing golf. And I guess the anti-beer for that is Coors Light. So I know that's not very popular, but I have different beers for different situations. Next up, if I go out, so if I go out to a restaurant and then go out to a club, or if I just go straight to a club, or if I just go to a bar to watch a game, if I'm doing that kind of stuff, I drink Stella Artois. So when I was younger, Stella was like this beer that we could never afford. We drank lots and lots of crappy beer. And one day I drank a Stella, and I'm like, that's the best beer I ever drank, and I could never afford it. So as I became older and started making money and I could afford the beer I actually wanted to drink, Stella became that beer for me. So if you ever see me in a bar or a club and you want to buy me a beer, buy me a Stella. Are you guys okay with Stella?
It's a little skunky, but yeah. I like
it is a little skunky, but not as much as Heineken.
True.
Let's see. If I want to get hammered. And this means like not public intoxication. This means private intoxication, where I'm not going to be around a lot of other people, where I can make a fool of myself. And if I want to get hammered from beer without having to drink like a case, I drink Chimay. Have you guys ever drank Chimay?
No, I've never
heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Awesome. I brought up a beer the Beerumverate has never heard of. Yeah. That is great. So Chimay is a Belgian beer, and it's
yes, I have heard of it and I have had it. It's
it
about
is
8.5% by volume.
It's a monad. So you can't really say how strong it is, because the longer you have it, the stronger it gets. It ferments in the bottle. It continues to ferment in the bottle.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's like a monastic beer. So it's almost like a wine-ish beer, but it definitely tastes like beer. It's really dark, and the first one's real hard to drink. But after that, you can get into the groove. And seriously, if you drink 3 or 4 of those, you're pretty freaking drunk. So if the objective is to tie one on and I don't have a lot of time and I'm not out in public, I will get Chimay. When I lived in Philadelphia, Chimay was like the big beer among my friends. I just drank it when I really wanted to get ripped, and they drank it all the time. They just sit and sip it. I mean, it's that strong. If you take a sip of it, like you feel it when it goes down. So I highly recommend Chimay if you like high-powered beer. Next up, barbecues. Barbecues are a big part of life, and no barbecue is complete without beer. I love going to barbecues. I love going over to someone's house, taking a big like tri-tip or something and putting it on the grill, and then going to their cooler and putting my beer in their cooler. And when I go to barbecues, the beer that I drink is Red Stripe. So Red Stripe is a Jamaican beer, and it's kind of in the middle of the two extremes. It's not like Coors Light, where you can drink it out in the sun all day and never get a buzz. But it's also not Chimay, where you drink a few of them and you're just wasted. It is the perfect beer for barbecues because you could drink them for like 5 or 6 hours and you never get out of control and you never get sloppy, but you definitely have a good one going on. So I also like the flavor of it. It is also a little bit skunky, actually, now that you bring it up. I love the bottles. They have the coolest bottles in the beer business, in my opinion. Have you guys seen them? They're like the barrel bottles with the little top. Yeah. So I love Red Stripe. I think it goes well with food as well. When you're finally got your barbecue done and you're pulling it off the grill, I think it tastes great with food. So Red Stripe is my go-to beer for barbecues. Let's see. Next up. I'm sorry, I have to keep unlocking my phone for my list. Next up, my hometown favorite beer. So I'm from central Pennsylvania, a little town called Carlisle. That's about 15 miles south of the capital of Harrisburg. And in that area, when I was a young lad in my late teens and early 20s, the beer that we found that we liked the most was Yuengling. Some people may have never heard of Yuengling because the company has not done a good job of distribution to even other states, let alone other countries. Here, there's a couple places in LA where you can find it, but for the most part, you have to like special order it to get it out here. It's not expensive beer. Like you can get a case of it for like, well, probably now it's a little more than this, but back when we used to buy it, it was like $15 for a case.
Jeez,
and
that's cheap.
And it was. Well, it's from Pennsylvania and we lived in Pennsylvania. So they're literally just like making it and then driving it 10 miles and like putting it in the store. So it was cheap. It's like, if you buy it out here, it's like $20 some a case, which is ridiculous, but it is what it is. But Yuengling, it's a lager. It's a very easy drinking beer. It's a lot like Red Stripe in that it's kind of in the middle. If you really want to tie one on, you can keep pounding them, but you can just keep drinking them casually and still feel pretty good. And like I said, they were dirt cheap for us. So my hometown beer is definitely Yuengling Lager. And if you've never tried it, give it a go. It's definitely worth the money that you'll spend to give it a try for the first time. You may find it's your favorite beer like we did, and you end up buying it all the time.
I think the import cost might be a bit much for me.
Yeah, they might be. And I would say for people in Europe, it's not worth it. Don't pay the import cost for Yuengling. It is not worth it. Buy a better beer. I mean, there's a reason Yuengling was like 14 something a case. Next up. Okay, so I'm from Philly. I lived in Philly for 7 years, went to school there, have great friends from Philly. And when you live in Philadelphia, you learn to drink malt liquor. Oh. And I think, honestly, if you go to college, you learn to drink malt liquor. And so I learned how to drink malt liquor while in Philadelphia. I'm not a fan of it. Most malt liquor I hate, and it actually like initiates my gag reflex. Like Old English, I can't drink Old English anymore. I could hardly drink it in college because it's so disgusting. Crazy Horse, literally, if I take one gulp of it, will make me puke.
Kids can say Old English.
OD, yeah.
OE.
You know, I guess they don't have 40s in Europe. Well, they do here, damn it. And they're 40 ounces of beer, and they're like $2 or $3, and the beer is like high powered. So malt liquor is way stronger than regular beer. And when we would go to the 40 store to spend our $2 to get drunk at night, I would buy Colt 45. Colt 45 to me is the easiest drinking malt liquor, hands down. Billy D. Williams is right. It works every time, without a doubt. It was honestly, when it came down to it, the only malt liquor that I could really drink. And we would have 40 races where we'd buy a 40 and then we'd race each other to see who could finish it first, just for fun. Nobody won anything. And it would get bad. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, they used to make these Old English 64s. Did you ever see those?
No.
They look like a moonshine jug. So they're big. They're a big glass jug, and it has like the little like hoop on the top that you can stick your finger through and carry it around with one finger.
Okay.
And we had a 64 race one time, and that got really bad. But
I'm sure that ended in puking.
It did. I can't remember the last time I had malt liquor, but if I was in a position where that was my only choice, my choice would be Colt 45. And bear with me, just a couple more here, guys. You may be regretting at this point asking me for this stuff. Sporting events. So I like different beer for sporting events, but
juice.
I am a Pittsburgh fan, and
I would never have known.
Yeah, watching Game Face or any of my content, you never know I was a Pittsburgh fan, but I am. And so when I go to sporting events, generally it's either when the Penguins play here in LA or the Steelers play in LA, which they are this year for the first time since I've lived here. I'm very excited about that. But generally, I end up going to Pittsburgh. So when I go home from the holidays, I always make sure that I go to at least one Steeler game. I try to make sure that I can plan it so I see the Penguins one night and then the Steelers on Sunday. And when I go to Pittsburgh for sporting events, I drink Iron City beer. And it is grotesque. It is awful beer. But if you go to sporting events there, that's all you can buy pretty much. Like the arenas, the stadiums, they've all signed exclusive deals with Iron City. When you're out, when you're out tailgating, everyone has kegs of Iron City. Everyone's got cans of Iron City. I mean, have you guys ever heard of National Bohemian beer? Some people call it Natty Bo. It's literally like during Beach Week on the East Coast, you can buy it for $3.99 a case. And the logo, it's made from water from the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania. Okay. And that's the river that flows next to 3 Mile Island. You guys may be too young to even remember 3 Mile Island, but back in the 80s, 3 Mile Island is a nuclear power plant right next to where I lived in Pennsylvania. It's in Harrisburg. And back in the 80s, it almost melted down like Chernobyl and like what happened in Japan. And Natty Bo uses the water from the river that they use to cool the reactors to keep it from melting down. And so their logo is like this dude from like the 40s with like the handlebar mustache, and he's missing one eye.
Oh my God.
Look it up. National Bohemian Beer. And
I'm getting a localized geography lesson as well.
Yeah, exactly. You are. You absolutely are. Be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. And so Iron City is basically on the level of Natty Bo or National Bohemian. It's just this rot gut, terrible beer. But after you drank like 3 or 4 of them, it doesn't really matter. And you start to understand why the Pittsburgh fans love it so much. Iron City, by the way, is made in Pittsburgh. I was assuming you guys would just get that because of Steel City and whatnot. Okay. And my last beer. So you guys never expected this. You're like, oh,
I thought it was going to be 5. We're up to like 6 or 7 right now.
I have bonuses. My last
it's like 25% extra free.
Yeah, exactly. This is my last one,
guys. It's DLC.
My last favorite beer is the beer that I like to drink out of kegs. So when you drink beer out of kegs, there's a lot of elements that you take into consideration before you buy the keg. The first is price, obviously. The second, especially when you're at the age where you're buying kegs and you're planning on drinking that whole keg in one night. Price is generally the most important thing. The other part is how easy they are to tap without foaming. So I'm sure you guys have all tapped kegs and you end up pouring foam out of that keg for like the first hour and a half. So we took all that into consideration, and our favorite keg beer was another Pennsylvania beer, Keystone Light.
Oh.
They used to have national commercials back in like the late 80s, early 90s. I don't even know if they still exist, but we would buy half kegs of Keystone Light for like $35 or $40. And then we'd take that half keg and we'd haul it to the top of the mountain. I'm not kidding or exaggerating. We would carry a keg to the top of a mountain and set it down next to the Appalachian Trail and set up tents and just drink that keg all night on the Appalachian Trail. And we did it over and over. We never got caught. We were all underage drinking, and we just go so far up that the cops were like, I'm not going up there. And so we just did it every weekend. Like, we had the whole thing down. We had like a rope system that we used to get the keg up to the top of the mountain. And every time it was Keystone Light. And we half keg for like $35 or $40. There'd be like 40 or 50 of us up there. We'd all spend like $1 or $2 to drink a keg. And so Keystone Light was the easiest drinking, the least foaming. It tasted good even when it started to get warm, because getting ice up there was really the hard part. That wouldn't melt. And so by the end of the night, the ice is all melted. It's just sitting in a bucket of water, dirty water with like cigarette butts in it and everything. And that was the real test. Could you still drink the beer when it got to that point? And for whatever reason, Keystone Light, man, even when it was warm and in that nasty bucket of water, it still tasted okay. So there you go. That's my rundown of my favorite beers, when I drink them, and why.
Awesome.
More than you asked for, I'm sure.
Substantially.
Yep. Substantially.
Right.
But anyway, I feel
we
like
haven't
I've been initiated now into the Beerumverate.
Yeah. You could
Or
be
maybe
an
I just
absolute-
initiated you guys into the Beerumverate.
I think the rest of us have probably been more tame with our storytelling, where you just come in full bore and it's like, have that.
Yeah. Like I said, I used to drink a lot of beer. I don't drink it anymore, but I used to drink a lot of beer. Back when
just
my
did,
metabolism would burn it off like it
Right.
was nothing.
You just
Now it's just snorting
the
mescal.
beers.
We haven't done rumors in a while. Should we do rumors?
Yeah.
Wait, you don't want to see
Yes,
what Berkough
absolutely.
has for beer?
I think I'm full now after that story. After that set of stories.
Oh, I got more. A lot more.
Mitch, do you want to go with rumor? 'Cause
Sure.
Yours sounds more interesting than mine, and Matt hasn't filled one in yet.
No. Yeah.
No, you did not. My rumor, my source has been real fishy lately, so I may had to bring him back from the dead, because it kind of just didn't work out. So I did some Mayan ritual stuff just for him. I learned it from Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Got all the techniques. It was all English. It was great. The rumor that he told me is that, so we have the whole Joy-Con drifting thing, which is a legit thing. I ran into it. I had to buy new Joy-Cons because
You went and bought them?
I went and bought new Joy-Cons because I couldn't play. I was so frustrated. I was trying to play Celeste like months ago, and I was like, I can't beat this game with this drifting. It's making it impossible. So I said, fine, I'm gonna buy some new Joy-Cons. I'll go send the other one to Nintendo so I can get it fixed. But I've heard a rumor that it's actually not the Joy-Cons, that it's actually the games. And so that send every single game that it's drifting back to Nintendo, and they'll give you a brand new copy of the game.
Without the drifting analog stick code in it.
Without the drifting analog stick code.
Great.
That was really good. I like that one.
You guys might want to set this segment up to let people know that we made these rumors up, right?
Well, I would hope that they'd know that by now.
Yeah, I hope they think I'm not killing somebody and bringing them back from the dead.
In order to find out that people can't
I've
figure out how to code for Joy-Cons correctly.
Never know with you people.
We are drinking. Who knows?
That's right.
And what do you mean?
I mean, you named an
people?
entire
Do you
podcast
mean
about
British?
getting drunk, so who knows?
It's drinking responsibly. Didn't you not hear the intro?
Matt, you got a rumor?
I haven't come up with one. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're
So
just
disappointed.
living the embodiment of disappointment. I've got a rumor. We have a new celebrity lurker. So I've heard from SIFTD. He is another Mitch, but he is none other than Mitch Trubisky.
I have a signed football of his, and I have his jersey. And quick story, I went to 2 football games, 3 technically my entire life. The first one I was so young, I don't even remember. It was preseason at Soldier Field. But I went to 2 games last year, and that was my first 2 football games. Mitch Trubisky played in both games. We are 2-0 in the same room, and we're going to keep it that way.
My other rumor is that Evan hasn't actually come to Europe on vacation, or as we would call it, holiday. He has actually been sent here by his Yakuza handlers to publicize the fact that the new game is coming out on the 29th of August. and he is here as an unofficial promo to do some kind of insidious groundswell type approach to getting more sales in Europe through his possibly psychosis level of affection for those games.
I would agree with that. He really loves them. I don't get it. I really don't. I've tried several of them, and I mean, they're okay. It's hard for me to see how someone will become obsessed with them, I guess.
And I heard another rumor.
Uh-oh.
I heard a rumor that Shane has sold his soul to the football gods so that New England will never win another Super Bowl.
I would be willing to do that. No problem.
But it came at a very heavy price.
Yeah.
It meant that the Steelers can't win one either.
Oh, then I would not make that deal. Definitely not make that deal. No way. Not happening. We beat the Patriots last year, damn it.
Yeah.
That was very rewarding coming in and being able to rub that in Sam's face. Of course, he got the last laugh when they won the Super Bowl and tied the Steelers for 6 Super Bowls. But we'll see how things go this year. I have a feeling there might be a little bit of a changing of the guard in the AFC this year. We'll see.
You know, I would be excited for a Steeler-Bears Super Bowl, Shane.
Yeah, I'd be down with that because I know we'd win.
Oh, you're funny. You don't have Antonio Brown anymore.
That's right there. Our stairway to 7 goes through Chicago. Right there.
I'm not even going to talk because I'm a Tennessee fan, as you guys know. So away from championing mediocrity in the world of American football, Shane, do you have any rumor that you'd like to share?
I do have a rumor. I've been hearing through well-placed and reliable sources that next year, Nintendo plans to release the successor to the 3DS.
The 4DS.
Yeah, that's what I called it at first because it breaks the fourth wall. It constantly cracks jokes that are self-referential while you're playing games. But yeah, because, you know, it makes perfect sense for Nintendo to release another dedicated handheld, right?
Yeah.
To compete with the Switch Lite.
The crazy part about that whole thing was when Shane says, I have dedicated sources, he usually has legit dedicated sources.
Yeah, it's believable.
This is the first time we've had someone that has legit sources
right. You
on
don't
the
know
show.
if this is true or not. So what do you think? You think it's possible? You think it could be true?
If you gave us an exclusive, I got my money's worth.
Well, if someone's going to do something dumb, and you've got money to burn and potentially lose, why the hell not?
Well, Nintendo would be the one to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And they would get no flack for it.
I don't know about that. They'll get it from us. That's for sure.
Yeah, but you know, but the
not
people
from everybody else though.
Yeah,
everyone
no,
else
everyone
bow
else.
down. Oh, everything Nintendo does is right.
Right?
We give it to them though.
I'll tell you who can't go wrong at the moment. Oh, I'm gonna have to get rid of Mitch.
Which Mitch?
Trubisky. Oh, we'd never get rid of you, Mitch.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you got some more. It's Beavertown, right?
Beavertown. Oh, this stuff's great. And the cans are just look
Gamma
so cool.
Ray, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Shall we state the current state of the games industry?
In one word or less?
Well, I'll go with the show notes version rather than just me kind of monopolizing time because I normally try and keep this shit show on track as best I can. So to well, Matt, Mitch, we've spoken about what we believe about the future of streaming is going to be, and we're all highly skeptical. And the more and more Google talk about Stadia, the less and less interesting it is. So when we were talking about kind of you guys or whoever put in the notes, we talk about next gen consoles and then streaming as a separate one. I've kind of lumped them together because when Xbox announced their intentions for the new console, they had streaming built in. So you can either stream via the cloud Or if you buy the next gen console, that is your local server. So if you want to stream from your home, you don't actually need to connect to the remote servers elsewhere. You do it via your local server, which will be your next box or Xbox 2 or whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, it kind of works the way that Steam works right now.
Yeah. So that's why I've kind of lumped those together. Do we give a shit about streaming?
I think you better.
I do. I think
You're
I'm
younger
probably
than me. I guarantee by the time you guys are my age, that's going to be your only option.
I think I'm less skeptical than everybody else on the panel about it. But I drank the Google Kool-Aid, so I'm kind of already in their ecosystem. I'm willing to spend some money on it and buy some games and see how it works. And I don't have cable or anything like that, so I mean my internet, you know, I've got like the top tier internet that you can get on purpose. Mitch just switched his background, or McWomble just switched his background.
Wow. Holy crap. Where did you get that skill? That's from when I worked at G4. Holy moly. That's a segment from X-Play, some stupid singing game that we reviewed. Wow.
What?
Nice work, McWomble.
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks streaming's the future.
Look, I'll say this. I don't want it to be the future, but it is the future. I compare game streaming to California. So California generally is the first to do most things in the United States as far as like changing laws, creating new laws, culturally, how the state is run. Everything kind of starts in California and then eventually gets disseminated out to the rest of the United States. Some states are slower than others, depending how resistant they are to change. But ultimately, every state ends up doing what California does first. And I think it's going to be the same exact way with game streaming. Right now, everybody hates it and they think it's a crazy idea. And there's just a couple small companies, not small, but there's a small market of a couple companies that are trying to make it happen. They seem crazy right now, but I guarantee you in 20 years, they're not going to seem crazy. They're going to be making tons of money off of it. And that is the way the vast majority of people are going to be playing games. I don't think the short-term outlook for streaming is great. I definitely agree with McWomble that the more you see of Stadia and the more information you get about Stadia, the less exciting it becomes. But really, I think the important thing for these companies right now is to get the service working well and get the infrastructure in place and improve their technologies, so that when more people are ready to adopt it and they figure out that their plans right now are completely idiotic and they change them, that gives them a buffer zone to kind of figure out a bunch of other stuff so that when casual folks are ready to jump in, the service is at a place where it should be and where they're going to actually want to pay to use it. So when new technologies come, it's always bumpy. It's never perfect. Just like when laws change, it seems a little awkward at first and weird. But over time, people get over that stuff and you start having people coming in that were never a part of the whole streaming is stupid thing, or the whole I need a console thing, or the whole console wars thing, or the whole fanboy thing. There are going to be people who come in that think that is crazy, which it is, and asinine, which it is. But people now get like ingratiated into it because that's the way game culture is right now. Eventually, it's not going to be that way. People are not going to be like, if it doesn't have Nintendo on it, I'm not buying it. People are going to be like, I want to play Super Mario Galaxy 8 and I can play it on Stadia and all these other services, and that's where I'm going to play it. So change is always hard at first and awkward at first, and people push back, and that's what we're in that stage right now. We're in here's the hardcore people lashing out, saying that they're never going to do this. They don't like it. It's stupid. It's dumb. And right now, in a lot of ways, it is, but it's not going to stay that way. It's going to get better. The technology is going to get better. The adoption rate's going to get better. The preconceived notions that a lot of gamers have are going to go away. They're going to be like the old people like I am right now. And the people and you're going to be the old people. And then there's going to be this whole other generation of kids that come in behind you guys, and they're going to accept this without a problem. So
three quick things. One, I'm glad I'm no longer the oldest person on this show. Two, I think it's the cost proposition for me that's not proving
That's what I was getting at. Like, right
value.
now, they're stupid. Their pricing is stupid. Everyone knows it's stupid. Everyone knows with the pricing the way it is right now, no one's going to use it, but they're going to learn that it's stupid and they're going to change it. And by that time, they get all that figured out. That's when this new rush of people come in who don't give a crap about the name on a piece of plastic with transistors inside it. They're just going to be like,
is it really the pricing though, or is it the messaging?
Shut up.
I think it's the pricing.
I think it's cool to be frank.
So if Mitch wants me to talk less, he knows he just needs to pay more and get Shane on more often. So, Matt, picking up on your point, for me, the concept is really cool because one of the things that I like about Switch is I mainly play it handheld because it means my wife and I only have one TV. So I don't want to monopolize the TV playing on my PS4. So if I want to play games and she wants to watch TV, I can switch out and I play handheld. So if I then want a streaming solution, that's great because I could stream to my iPad, I could stream to my laptop, and I could play games that I wouldn't otherwise be able to get that same experience. But I just don't get the pricing model. It's just not worth it. Everything is costing me the same. So why is it?
When you add it up, like you end up almost paying the same price that you would pay to just buy a console.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
And I don't think you do though, because like if you already have a tablet or whatever,
you said you drank the Kool-Aid.
You admitted it.
I did, yeah. But no, but if you have a PC right now, you don't have to have their controller or anything. You just load it up in Chrome.
I thought you did need the controller still.
No, not if you're doing it on your PC or if you're on a laptop.
It's only off your TV. Like if off your TV, you have to have the Google controller.
Right.
Because
that's the problem.
To the Chromecast.
Nobody knows. Like all these little nuances. Like when they first announced it, it seemed a lot more easy to kind of wrap your head around and clear. And I think to McWomble's point, as time has gone on, the message has got muddier and more caveats have been introduced. Oh, we said that you didn't need to buy. Oh, no. Now, if you want to play on your TV, you do need to buy our controller. Oh, we said it was going to be like a Netflix for games. Oh, no, it's not really like that anymore. It's a subscription service for games. So to me, the messaging has been muddy and confusing and it's changed. And I think the biggest problem is that on the outside, if you just look at it, you're like, okay, they want to charge $10 a month for the base plan or whatever. Most people are just going to say, okay, that's $120 a year. That's $240 in 2 years. That's $360 in 3 years. There's my console. So yeah. I think really, maybe you're right. Maybe the big problem has been the messaging, that they haven't had a clear message from the beginning that then they could just pound into the pavement over and over until people learn it. It's like, hey, here's this cool thing. And then like this little trickle of information afterwards, most of which the new information was stuff that people didn't want to hear. And I think that has contributed to kind of I don't know, it's kind of been in a free fall as far as like mind share among gamers after that initial announcement, because it seems like every new piece of information that comes out is something that people like us.
The most really recent one as well, whether we're talking, someone asked the direct question, was it a community manager for Google Stadia? And we'll get on to community managers in a moment. But someone asked a direct question. So if I buy a game from Google Stadia's store, what happens if Google Stadia goes away? And they said, you just have to trust us because it's not going to go away. We're going to support it. And Jim Sterling did a video and he showed it, like there's 106 different Google initiatives that have been canned.
Yeah.
So
they don't have a great track record with that stuff. That's why people don't trust them. They're like, wait a minute, what happened to Google Plus, the Facebook killer? Like, what happened to that? I mean, I went and signed up. I think everyone I knew did. And I don't think I ever went back. It was just so point, like the whole circles thing. I was like, why? Like, just let me have a friends list. I don't need like these weird groups of people that's like segmenting them all apart. Like the whole idea is that, hey, it's my crew. It's all one group. Yeah. And then, they actually left that up for a long time, but it is a long trail of products that Google swore was going to stick around, and then it didn't. People get invested in them, and they get burned. And once you get burned one time by a company, it's hard to go back. So,
Mitch,
Oh yeah. So yeah, I think Shane, you nailed it on the head of the messaging. I think the messaging has been the biggest issue with Google Stadia in general, because when they came out with the first thing, they hyped it up like it's supposed to be this big reveal. We're going to get all the information we need about this thing. And it was a very generalistic type a conference, and they really didn't answer the specific questions where obviously you're talking to gamers, and gamers know technology, and technology, they know about how much they need for their internet, data caps, all those kinds of questions. How they didn't think they were going to be asked those questions in the very beginning was very interesting, and just the fact they couldn't have an answer for it right away, and it's like, come on guys. And then once they finally did their next one, I think they did a better job of messaging everything. But if they did that the first time, I think confusion would have been a lot better, because in this conversation, we talked about of confusion of what can you use a controller for? What can you not? What do you need Google's controller for? And I think in the first one, they did a good job in explaining what it is, but I don't think they, after that, marketed really well outside of that to give people press releases. That is very, very easy information to understand, to say, hey, you have the Stadia controller. This is what you can use it on. You have your normal controller. This is what you can use it on. And I think, like, I remember when I saw the second conference and they showed the actual diagram of the data and said, this is what you need internet-wise to run in 4K, 60 frames per second, 1080p.
Whoa.
Yeah. So when they appeared and showed that, at least it was concrete and something you can look at and actually say, okay, I get that. This is what I need to get there. And I think if they did that for all their marketing materials, we would be in a different state right now with Google Stadia. It doesn't help the fact that I think they put the expectation, I think everyone put the expectation on them being the Netflix for games. And I don't think that was their plan in the beginning, because I don't think they ever said anything about that.
They didn't. People assumed.
Because then they didn't come out with a clear message and say, whoa, right. Hang on, everybody.
No, exactly. That's the whole point. They came out and they didn't have a clear message to start. And I think they dropped the ball in trying to launch this thing, because to ask people and then to say, oh, there's not even going to be a free version until next year, and to make people pay a lot of money. I almost shilled out the money to try it out for myself, but I ended up canceling after I've thought about it for about 4 days. And I said, I don't want this. And I finally I canceled my order, and I understood why. And it was like, it was after the second one when they revealed the bundle. And like, I'm a person like Berkough. I'm not sold on Google Stadia, but I am a Google shill a little bit, because I do have a Google Pixel. I do have Chromecasts all over my house. I do have a Google Home, and my friend does. And so we kind of been using Google as our interface for a lot of things. But the thing that got me nervous is when it wasn't a subscription service and it wasn't a Netflix for games, when that game could disappear. And I don't trust Google enough at the moment to shill in to say that they're going to stay this long term. At least I'd give it 2 years. And if they're still around, I might consider Google.
I would argue that Phil Harrison also notoriously always seems to be around stuff like this. For whatever reason, under his leadership, it always seems like the messaging gets screwed up. So if you remember the PlayStation 3 debut, when they showed all those trailers, and Phil Harrison for the next 2 months said, oh, no, that's in-game footage. That's not pre-rendered. That's not fake. And then we all saw that it was all a big lie, that it was actually pre-rendered footage and all that stuff was fake. And I actually cornered him at GDC and had for the time, a legendary interview with him where I basically said to him, look, you lied to us. That was fake footage. And he was like, he got angry with me, and he's like, what makes you think it's fake? And I'm like, well, we just saw Motorstorm. Where's the mud on the windshield in Motorstorm? He goes, it's there. And I was like, bro, really? The mud that you showed on that trailer at E3 is not the mud that's on the windshield in that game now. And he's like, well, we're just going to have to agree to I'm like, no, bro, there's no agreeing to disagree on this.
It's either there or it's not. Yeah. And
for me, and then, he went to Atari, and then he started trying to revive Atari. That never worked. And after that, he just kind of jumped around from job to job until he landed at Stadia. And so seeing all this stuff happening with Stadia, where he comes out and announces this big thing that everyone's excited about, and then slowly over time starts walking back that stuff later on. It's starting to seem like an MO to me with Phil Harrison instead of an anomaly. So,
and I think the advantage right now for comparing like Google Stadia to the next gen consoles, I think the advantage is that I think streaming, I agree with you to say that streaming will be the thing of the future eventually, and that in the beginning it's going to take some time. But I think the advantage of what compared to Google Stadia that Xbox has and PlayStation has is they have an actual dedicated console where you can still play your games. And maybe they can go, hey, I'm going to try this streaming out while I'm just chilling here on the couch and my girlfriend or wife has to use the television. I'll give it a shot, see if it works. And then if they find it that works a lot, then like I just use the example, my best friend, he wants to play more games, but his girlfriend likes to watch like The Bachelorette. So he's like, what? I can't really play anything. So I could just imagine him going, okay, well, I'll just play God of War on streaming on my PlayStation while she's watching her Bachelorette. So I think that's where streaming will hit big time. It's similar to Netflix. Like Netflix was all the discs send to home, and then they added the streaming to that content so you could do both. And then eventually one took over the other. So I think that's a similar rollout that I think games will probably do.
I think we often overestimate what the average gamer cares about. We live in this bubble, this otaku bubble, where we think everyone's like us, and they're not. Most people are going to be totally fine playing a game like God of War on Google Stadia. They won't even notice a difference.
Most people are stupid.
I would agree with that.
One thing for me, and this is a kind of personal preference more than anything else, is I like physical media, not so that I have something to keep and hold. It's because that physical thing has a value.
You can sell it.
Resale value.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with you. I still buy all physical. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
I use. I've got as a kind of equivalent to GameStop, because GameStop owns the major game retailer here, which most people on SIFTD despise. I've got £175 worth of store credit with them at the moment, and I'm going to save that up, and I'm going to keep trading in games that I've been buying, so that when the new consoles come out, I'm not spending as much real money. So right. I actually value the proposition of being able to buy something and then that having an intrinsic value to sell back.
I agree.
As soon as we move into streaming and a totally digital solution, I'm going to buy less games.
The kids don't care about it, man. I'm telling you, the kids do not care about owning stuff. In fact, they like not owning stuff. They like knowing that they have access to all this content, whether it's games, music, TV, but there's nothing to show for it. They like that. They like knowing that they own a bunch of stuff, but it's not taking up a bunch of space.
But then you'll end up in a squeezed market, because
I agree.
You'll only have a limited number of absolute heavy hitting games that make money, and then there'll be this void. Because
I don't agree with that, because I think in the future there's going to be so many more platforms for people to get games. The problem right now, if you're a publisher like an Activision or an EA, is you make a game and then how many options do you have to distribute that game? In some cases, 2. I mean, like NHL 19 only came out for Xbox and PS4. When all these streaming services go up, these are all distribution outlets for the publishers. They are going to love it. They want people to be able to buy their games no matter what service they're using, no matter where they are, no matter what phone they're on, no matter how fast their internet is. They want people to just spend dollars on the products that they create. They don't care how they get them. And to a certain extent, I don't know that they care all that much about how great the experience is either. It's one of those things where—
because they can fix it later.
Right. It's let's break it now and fix it later, because you're not going to have to give that money back in most cases. So, I mean, ultimately, this is a future that the publishers are going to want too. I think Pachter did a pretty good job on his last episode kind of explaining it. But this is what the publishers are going to want. They don't want to just put out games for PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. They want their games to go everywhere and people to have the ability to spend money on their products no matter where they are and what they're doing. So it's like swimming upstream and in the Colorado River. Like, you may hold yourself in place for a little while, going as fast as you can, but eventually you're going to get swept downstream. And that's what's going to happen with game streaming. I mean, you can fight it all you want. You can be angry about it all you want, but like it or not, it's coming, and it is going to be.
I think it's true. Look, thinking about kind of moving us on a bit, because one final thing, no, Matt's a fan. I can see the benefit, but I don't think there's the kind of monetary value there for me at the moment. One thing that I would say is, in a streaming solution, what happens to exclusives?
There may not be any anymore.
Yeah. Do we become console agnostic, or
yes?
Do we
I think
hold
that's
on
great.
To some of those?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the benefit.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, eventually Sony and Microsoft are going to get over it too. They're going to get over having to spend billions of dollars in R&D every 5 years to come up with a new console. They're going to get over creating products that they could sell 50 million copies of, and instead only selling 13 million copies. I mean, imagine if God of War for PlayStation 4 was available on Xbox and PC and Google Stadia. How many copies of that game do you think Sony would have sold? I mean,
probably 4 or 5 more.
Yeah. Eventually, even the big three are going to start waking up, and they're going to be like,
imagine
what are we
if Gears
doing?
5 was available on PlayStation.
I guess as the amount of the more options that people have to play on platform wise, the less you're going to make if you made something exclusive. Because at the moment, there's just a small pool that obviously they'll sign them to a deal where they're going to give them X amount of dollars extra because they're making it exclusive on their platform, where they're going to make that money back maybe tenfold if they have more platforms to release that game on. So I think what helps make it agnostic would be having more platforms available. So I think the exclusive will just go away in general once that happens. If you want
exclusives, you can have Nintendo consoles.
I think
Nintendo will be the last company left with hardware.
That's what I was gonna say. They're gonna stand on that, and they're gonna hold on to that.
They'll be the last one left, absolutely, without a doubt.
Right. Okay. I'm going to move us on. Talking about something that we know Shane doesn't have any strong opinions on whatsoever. Games media, the shift towards community managers and influencers. I can't think that we've not spoken about this before.
I don't think we have.
No, we have not. This is a topic I've been wanting to talk about, so I'm happy we are.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I dropped into the notes because I figured it would be a good topic with Shane on to talk.
So, about. Mitch, you haven't done much talking, and it's thanks to you that Shane's on. So I want you to kick this one off.
Yeah, I just it's really interesting at the moment, and I think the biggest thing I'm starting to catch on is the
This is crazy, man. You went back and picked up all this stuff. Where'd you get that? I don't even remember that.
That's on my unboxing video too. I found that one online. Yeah. That's like one of the only pictures of you.
An unboxing video?
The unboxing video I did, I had to find pictures of you when explaining the site, and that was one picture of like 4 photos I could find online of you.
Wow, I've never even seen that one. I guess I'm doing a review of, is that SSX Tricky?
Yeah.
For GameSpot.
That's great. Those were the days.
So no, I just think it's interesting because it's I think the thing I'm catching on more and more is it seems to be more of usually games journalists were kind of more spread, at least in my viewpoint, in regards to covering multiple different console games, multiple different like game types themselves. And now I kind of see it's more and more of specific teams focusing on one specific console and not being able to experience all the other games. And so it seems to have a central bias to what they're doing, because obviously they're not going to put someone that doesn't enjoy the games that team makes on that team specific. And so it feels as if they are not really having a real opinion of things anymore, in a sense, because of that tunnel that they kind of put them in to say, you're going to be working on Sony games. And I guess IGN's a good example. Like, they have a specific IGN team that works on Sony games. And it's like,
don't they have a podcast for each platform?
Yeah. And so it just makes it real interesting to think of, well, can I really believe your opinion anymore? Are you really a journalist anymore, in a sense?
I think it feeds into fanboys having separate channels like that. When IGN started out like that, and I'll be honest with you, the reason I ever found IGN in the first place was because of IGN64.com. I was running my own N64/Dreamcast website at the time, and there just weren't that many other websites, in all honesty. Like, I was one of like 5 websites about games in like the world, and they were like the big one. And because we had a focus on N64 and Dreamcast, I went to the N64 and Sega channels. I had a Sega channel back then. Figure that one out. But I think, while I agree with you, I think sometimes you can sacrifice perspective, at least overall perspective of the industry, if you're just honed in on one thing. The one thing I will say that I think is smart and works well is you ingratiate yourself to the fans, the fanboys, and they are the ones that come back every day to your website. So from a business perspective, I think obviously at this point, the proof's in the pudding. It worked out for IGN. Focusing people on one platform gets the fans to keep coming back day after day because they start to relate. And I think that might have been the genesis of the influencer, at least a person who kind of just focuses on one thing, like razor sharp, and becomes kind of an expert on that one thing.
The Sega genesis of the influence.
And I honestly think that can be good. Like, I think that's the good side of influencers, because if you have someone who just plays Minecraft or just plays Call of Duty or just plays Overwatch, they become experts on those games. They know every little nuance about them. And like, I can speak on most games, at least I think somewhat coherently. The people who run channels that just focus on one thing, or even if you're at IGN and you're just focusing on Nintendo or Sony or whatever, it does allow you to become better at covering just that one thing. And for people who only care about just that one thing, that's an invaluable resource to have. So,
one example of that from my experience, when I picked up Madden 18, I did actually watch some guys who were pro players who do like 20-minute videos of giving people tips and saying this, if you want a decent first down on this play, this is every single time, no matter what the defensive alignment, this is the play.
They give you money plays, basically.
Yeah.
And
that was before I realized it was a soulless, lifeless piece of shit gambling mechanic, and ditched it quite soon afterwards. But it was that I found these things. They weren't there to try and flog me something. They weren't there seeming this kind of, this is like so amazing, you have to own this, go out and buy it now kind of stuff. It was, if you want to know how to get good at this, these are the things you need to learn. And that's where I see the value.
That's where it's good. That's absolutely where it's good. Where it goes bad is when influencers try to emulate being a journalist. That's where I have a problem with influencers and YouTubers, and mostly because there's just no oversight over what they're doing. And therefore, to me, I would never trust their opinion on anything. And look, the payola stuff, that's all well documented. It happens. How often? Who knows? But ultimately, it's just having no oversight whatsoever. Knowing that they have no oversight whatsoever keeps me from trusting their opinion on the products they cover. But like you said,
except for us, where our opinions are absolutely trustworthy.
But you don't just focus on one thing. You guys aren't just talking about one game every time you do a podcast. You aren't talking about just one console.
Unless it's Yakuza, yeah.
They're a marvelous series of games.
And you have Evan on the show. But that's where I think there's danger in the influencer. If they have a focused community, I think it can be great. It could be an invaluable resource. And going back to IGN, I mean, one of the things that IGN did when they kind of sectioned up everybody on platforms is you create beat reporters. You create journalists who are dedicated to uncovering stuff just around those platforms. So again, going back to the IGN 64 days, their lead editor, Matt Casamassina, because he only focused on Nintendo stuff, he got exclusive information all the time. And sometimes it would be a game that was coming to N64 and another platform, but he was always breaking all the Nintendo news because that's all he did. So he built a great relationship with Golan Harris, which is Nintendo's PR company. He built great relationships with NOA. And then as just an employee of IGN, he had relationships with all the other publishers, and he was breaking big stories almost like on a daily basis. And there also, I think, is where you can see kind of some value, because you end up becoming friends with the people who are making games for that platform. They end up trusting you, and off you go. You get a ton of information that other people aren't getting, and you become a journalist that people envy. So there's value in being focused. There's value in being an influencer. I think it's when they try to say, hey, I'm IGN, but it's just me. I think that's where influencers tend to fall off the map for me.
Right, Matt, you inserted this as a topic, but we've not really given you an opportunity to say anything. So now is your time.
All right. Well, now that you've given me the ability to speak, no, I think the whole reason that I put the topic in there is I think that there's a shift in the industry overall from like PR companies to we're going to hire this person to...
Did you say PBR companies?
No,
Are you
PR,
thinking about beer?
PR, press relations.
Thinking about fantasy football, PPR.
There's a shift from PR companies to community managers, right? You have these people that are designated. You deal with our fans. You reach out through social media. People aren't finding games anymore through like magazines. You know, like I used to have a subscription to I still have a subscription to Game Informer, but you know, different magazines back when I was a kid, and I was like, I looked through the magazine to find out about games. Today, you just jump online and it's whatever the Twitter algorithm or the Facebook algorithm spits at you. That's kind of the stuff that you're going to be interested in, and it's people designated to sort of handle the content that goes down these pipelines. I think
but you're right, that pipeline is even more dangerous than the influencer, because it's the company. when everyone is starting to get all their information direct from the companies themselves, that's dangerous, because one, they control the flow of information. They're the source of the information, and
there's no challenge or objectivity.
Yeah. I mean, they could tell you whatever they want, and if that's the only place you're going to get the information from, either you believe it or you don't, but eventually most people are going to start believing it. So that is a danger.
An example of that is Fire Festival. Like,
yeah.
Look how that shit happened. Like literally they just said, send this tile and we're going to feed you to this website that's going to tell you all about this thing, and end up being not totally true, and ended up putting people in a really dangerous situation. And people believed it because they believed the people that did it. But at the same time, this is where we get into the tricky part with influencers and things like that, is it's not always, even though they're supposed to, they're not always very forthcoming if they are paid to do this. Or is it because they love the game, or is it because they're flying them into and they're booking them into a hotel room and paying for their dinner for free? And then
I would argue that stuff is not a big deal. Especially after you've done it for a while. I know people always bring it up. Oh, they flew you there. Oh, they put you in a hotel. After you do that like 4 times, it loses its luster real quick.
Sure.
I just from speaking from experience, like even before I started working at GameSpot back in 2000, and I had been running my own website, I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to go to these events. And I had this, look, I was guilty is what I'm saying of what a lot of people are, of thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like these amazing. They're not amazing. Like they're sometimes very awkward and very weird, where you're jammed into this little hotel room with like 20 dudes and it's like 101 degrees and somebody decided not to wear deodorant. Like it's not as glamorous as you think. It's like, oh, but you get to go to the city. Not really. Like you land, you take a cab from the airport to whatever hotel they're doing the event at. You never see the city. You only see the hotel and the airport. I think through the years that has been completely overblown. I really don't think stuff like that influences even influencers. Like you get over it real quick.
That's what it is. It's not, you're not there on a jolly. You're there for business.
Yeah.
So if you're flying people out, you want to do it as cheaply and efficiently as you can.
True.
And most of them do it cheaply. There's some that don't. Like Call of Duty, obviously, they have a gigantic budget for all their stuff. So when you would go to review a Call of Duty game when they used to do that, you would stay in a nice like hotel room, and they would set up the game in your room. So you didn't have to like leave if you didn't want to. And you'd play the single player there in your room, and they give you like a couple days to do that. So you could play it on a couple different difficulty settings. And then after a couple days, they bring everyone together into a big room to play multiplayer for 2 days. But even that, it's like, I don't know. I really don't think stuff like that influences people's opinions. To me, what influences people's opinions is money, sponsorships, stuff like that.
I'm sorry, I meant them both together in collaboration.
Yeah. I kind of cut you off before you got to it, I think. But.
No, that's okay. And it's basically they just. I think it's
not okay. You paid for him to be on. He should be more respectful.
I should be more respectful of him. He should be able to talk as much as he wants, and I should just shut up until I'm called upon.
No, but I'm happy you brought that up, because that is something that people will bring up and not include the two things together. We'll just say, oh, well, they do put them in a hotel room. They do give them a fancy dinner. But in my case, in my example, I consider them both together, of giving them the big money and then doing all those things for them, and then thinking that, do you really believe that they believe what they're saying? And it's hard to do, even though we question it, because we used to be in a generation of where that was the case, where that wasn't really as in the scope of, like, people were legitimately journalists, had journalism degrees and things like that. And nowadays, I mean, anyone can pick up a camera and get enough followers to be able to go do these crazy things that they have no experience in whatsoever, and money influences people.
The one thing I would say too is that the publishers and the PR people use these events as screeners. So even before the days of the influencers in YouTube, when you go to these events, inevitably there's downtime. Maybe it's a dinner, maybe there's a lunch during the day, and you talk to the PR people, and they'll try to ask you, like, what do you think? They'll try to get your opinion of the game before you end up going out and putting out any content. And our rule was, oh, no. You don't get our opinion until we publish our opinion. But I heard a lot of journalists that would sit there and talk to them. Well, I kind of like this. I don't like that. And what they do is they take notes. And they had, at one point, they had a list of all the journalists in the industry and kind of a profile of each one of them. Shane likes shooters. Shane likes driving games. Shane doesn't play strategy games. And they would use that list to pitch you on stuff. So Activision would call me, hey, we have this new trailer for a new multiplayer mode. You want? And they would look and they'd be like, okay, we have Shane here. He likes Call of Duty. He's into shooters. He gets shooters. And that's how they would use it to pitch coverage, because they know they'd be more likely to get a better response from me if they pitch a shooter, because that's something that I'm interested in. So I know that they're still doing this, and they're probably doing it even more so with influencers at this point. Although I would guess that instead of the notes talking about what genres someone likes or what their personality is like, I think a lot of the notes now are more like, how easily can we influence this guy? How gullible is this person to us telling him to do something and then him doing it? And it's just evolved for the PR person. I think instead of worried now, like, do they care about this product or not? I think it's like, how malleable is this person? Can we work with him to try to get the kind of coverage that we want for this product?
Yeah, instead of that, it's more like a statistic of, like, what's the value of this person with this much money put into them? How many people will this person influence if we give them this X amount of dollars?
Yeah, how many click-throughs will we get on our stuff when he retweets it, basically, or when he mentions it on his latest video on YouTube? All that stuff, all those metrics go into it, and they build profiles of everybody. I'm sure PR people still have profiles of me. At this point, they probably just have hates everything. Leave them alone.
I bet they share them with each other too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Share absolutely. With each other so they can help each other.
Yeah, a list was uncovered back in, I guess it was like 2008 or something like that. Like, somebody found the list of, like, all the journalists, and, like, it was like a spreadsheet, and it's like, likes this, doesn't like that, easy to work with. Can turn stuff around quickly, all stuff like that. They build profiles of the journalists so they can figure out how they want to disseminate and distribute their assets. So I know that hasn't stopped.
Did you like what yours was on that list for?
Yeah, I was okay with what they said about me. It was pretty accurate, to be honest with you. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, wow, like, you guys figured all this stuff out just from me coming to your events and, like, talking on the phone with you guys. So I didn't feel bad about it. It wasn't mean, or it was accurate, to be honest with you. It was just startling, I think, is what it was, because it's weird when you realize someone has been compiling information about you and you had no clue. I think no matter who you are, that's one of those things that you're like, whoa, wait, like someone's been kind of spying on me without telling me, and I had no idea. I was glad that ultimately I read my profile and I was like, oh, I'm okay with that. Like, that's accurate. But it was just weird to think that there's somebody studying you without your knowledge of it. It was just eerie.
We could get a bit conspiratorial right now.
There's enough of that in the world already. Let's hold off.
All right, Matt, you got anything you want to say before we kind of wrap this?
No, I mean,
I don't mean the show. I mean the segment.
Yeah, I
I'm not bored yet.
Is that when you guys end the show, when you get bored?
Sometimes.
When Mitch is sick of me talking shit, that's normally when we're at.
No, I don't have anything additional to add. Mitch, what about you?
No, I think Shane and I hammered that talk pretty hardcore.
Cool.
Well, you guys just watched.
Yeah, watch and drank beer. It's like watching sports.
But and I guess the one thing I could segue into the next thing, I'm going to do your job for you, McWomble, because I thought about it. When you were saying kind of like people were watching you, it's almost like the government, like they always say the thing is the government's watching you. They're always keeping tabs on what you do. And so I guess going into the next segment we have in regards to is more and more news keeps getting more about government potentially getting involved in the games industry more and more, especially. Oh my gosh, I just actually watched a news story the other day that talked about two people that talked online about video games, and now they're both missing in California and they're looking for them. I think that's right. They played shooters together online, and that's how they met, and then one of them stopped talking to the other person, and now both of them are missing.
Really?
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing.
I missed that one somehow. And that happened in California?
Yeah, I think so.
I never saw that story. Crazy.
That means if Shane's theory is correct, that means people are going to go missing from all over the 50 states.
But I just I guess I would pop it to you right away, Shane, of just do you think it's happening more often that like this government getting involved in games?
Let's see. So
you got the longest history decks than we do.
Yeah, I mean, the industry has had a good history of being proactive. So generally, the industry at large realizes there's a problem and it fixes it itself before the government can get involved. However, greed has changed everything. And I don't think it's just greed of the publishers and the companies. I think it's stockholder greed. The expectations of stockholders to always get huge dividends and for the stock price to always go up and for revenue to always go up and for there it is again, and for operating expenses to always go down. Like those expectations from stockholders put a lot of pressure on the publishers to do crap they shouldn't be doing. And loot boxes are something they shouldn't be doing. It's just, there's no other way to put it. There's no good reason for loot boxes to exist other than for the publishers to make more money. And because this topic has to do with money, actually it had to do with money before as well. So if you go back to M-rated games and violence in games and how that was a big thing in like the 80s, and not just in games, but also in music, like they had to start putting like explicit lyrics labels on CD.
Do you remember the Guns N' Roses label?
Right. Like I worked at a record store whenever that came out, actually. Use Your Illusion. And so I was a part of that whole thing of like, oh, now there's stickers on every CD that we sell. So in the 80s, there was this weird push from like Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan to make America a really boring white-led place. And they're like, we don't want violence in our media. We don't want drugs. We don't want like controversial lyrics in our music. They really like rolled America back about 15 years, or tried to anyway. And the industry realized, well, look, if we let the government handle rating video games, it's going to be a disaster. So let's set up the ESRB. Why are we going to do this? So that the government won't get involved and we can keep controlling our industry and we can make as much money as possible. And every kind of thing that's popped up around games, that's always been the default method of how the industry handled it. They're like, look, we're going to take care of this. And then we'll go to Congress and we'll say, look, we're doing X, Y, and Z. to tackle this, and we're going to nip this in the bud, and it's all good. And that has worked up until now. But the problem with loot boxes and microtransactions is that the publishers are making way too much money off of it. Did you guys see this week that Blizzard has made $1 billion off of microtransactions just from Overwatch?
So they can't afford. Was it 60 people at Blizzard? They can't afford to keep them on.
Right. Yeah.
But they can make $1 billion.
That goes back to what I was saying about them cutting costs and trying to do it as cheaply as possible now. So there's no way that these publishers are going to eliminate loot boxes on their own when they're generating that kind of revenue. Adding M ratings to Mortal Kombat wasn't really going to affect them in any way financially. This is one case where it will have a drastic effect on them financially. And that's why you're not seeing the industry self-regulate itself like it usually does. Normally, you know what, they would have just come in and they'd have passed some kind of internal legislation amongst the industry, or the ESA would have all its members sign some creed saying that they wouldn't do it. Not anymore, because now it's money. It's actual greenbacks that are having an effect. And I think that's why you're seeing loot boxes making it through the courts everywhere. I'm surprised that Parliament decided that loot boxes weren't gambling. But
I'll weigh in on that.
Maybe you're not as surprised. I was pretty surprised to kind of see the first official judgment on loot boxes fall on the side of the publishers. But maybe, again, there's lobbying money coming from the gaming industry in Europe, coming into politics, all that shady stuff. It's why I hate politics. It's why I hate politicians. It's why I'm a registered independent, all that. But it all starts getting mixed up in games, and that's when things start to get messy.
Yeah. So I included this topic in the notes, and it's either through ignorance or arrogance. I think that the games companies aren't self-regulating. Previously, like you were saying, Shane, if something has happened and governments are actually starting to look seriously at something, they'll self-regulate. And I don't know if they're just thinking, oh, this time it will be different.
That still of me is so funny.
I'll let you finish your thought for a second. But didn't they come out with? And I don't even know if they like started putting out games or not yet, because I haven't seen it. When is there going to be a symbol that they made to say that this is a loot box game?
Yeah, it's in the same. All they are doing by doing that is saying this game has in-app purchases. So in exactly the same way as if you buy something on the App Store or Google Store.
But did that go through? Did they end up?
Yeah, but they haven't actually done it yet.
Okay.
Where the issue actually arises, and I'm slightly more cynical about this, so people can plead the morality angle as much as they want, kind of save the children. What I can see this going to is, like, if we can make this gambling, we can tax this. So if you think they made $1 billion, if you could get, I don't know what the tax regulation is in the States, but if you could get in the UK, I think it's 20%, 25%. The government can get 25% of that. They'll come for it.
That's a good point. But then you would think that they would have classified it as gambling so that they could then go in and skim off the top.
Well, I think the problem with that is the legislation isn't there to say that it is. And I think the people who, through that arrogance part in Rockstar, they're going to be the ones who kill it for everyone else. Because their announcement of, we're just going to have a actual casino online that you buy you buy stuff to then gamble.
And apparently every single person who's gone into that casino has lost all their money. Apparently no one's been able to win in the casino. And you also have to realize that Rockstar can set the odds at whatever it wants.
Yeah.
And like, even
it's unregulated.
Yeah, and they're not even requiring that they place they could literally set it up so that no matter what, you lose every hand of blackjack in that casino. And there's no way anyone could prove whether it was that way. There's nothing anyone can do about it. That's a really good example, actually. That had completely slipped my mind. I didn't think about it. I'm like, wait a minute, Rockstar is actually running a virtual casino that uses like real credits.
Yeah, that'll be really scary, because on top of that, like, you got kids that play that game.
Yeah.
Take mom and dad's credit card, go to the casino and use it. And
Well,
There has to be some better protection on that.
the crazy thing is you can't extract your shark cash or whatever the hell they call it in game. You can't.
And that's why technically in the UK it wasn't classed as gambling because, and as Matt keeps saying on GameFace, because the thing that you cash out doesn't actually have a monetary value. That's where the UK, the civil servants for the UK government said, it's under the current legislation, we can't call it gambling.
Because
whereas in Belgium, they just said if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's gambling.
Probably a duck. Yeah, it's gambling.
I don't know if they said change the law so that you could consider it gambling is what they're trying to say. Because
they'll probably do that. So as McWomble said, they can start making the money off of the loot boxes.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll find that FIFA is suddenly an M-rated game because it's got gambling mechanics.
Right, that's true. Not going to keep people from getting it. It's not going to keep parents from buying FIFA for their kids either.
Never.
No. But one thing that I asked, but haven't yet. There's still one episode of Pack to Factor to go. But a question that I posed that may not have got through Shane's filter was in the UK, the 6 big gambling companies got together and they are self-regulating. So they've gone to the Gambling Commission in the UK and said, we are going to stop advertising at major sporting events. We are going to self-impose a daytime advertising ban. So we'll only do it after 9 o'clock at night. And there's another system of measures that they're going to put in place. They're still pleading poverty a bit, but there's bollocks, whatever. But they're doing it because what I was reading an article on this, and what the author of the article was saying is these people have seen what happened to cigarettes, the tobacco industry and the alcohol industry, and they don't want to be next. So I can't understand why the major publishers wouldn't get together and say, everyone's looking at us right now. Maybe we should think about controlling ourselves.
I think we are starting to see some of the more self-aware developers and publishers starting to turn away from surprise mechanics, as EA likes to call it. I think we're also starting to see like the new Call of Duty, no season pass, all DLC free. You get it a little earlier if you own a PS4 versus an Xbox or PC. But none of the DLC, you have to pay for any of it. And so I think we're starting to see a slight shift, but yeah, I mean, are we ever going to see like the removal of Ultimate Team from Madden or FIFA? No way. EA stock, if they announce that they're getting rid of Ultimate Team and all its sports games, it would tank. I mean, literally, EA would probably lose about like 60 to 70% of its value in a day. So, and I mean, look, if you work for EA, you can't do that. You can't do it. If you're the CEO, you can't do it. So some of these publishers are caught between a rock and a hard place on this. They've dug the hole and now they can't get out of it.
Yeah, but there's the other thing that pisses me off about all this. I'm normally the angry one on this podcast, by the way.
Till I joined.
There's fucking insidious bastards hiding behind fiduciary duty. Oh, it's our fiduciary duty that we have to screw people over as much as possible to satisfy our shareholders. Yeah. Don't plead that crap with me.
Stock market's so dirty. It's like the worst part of capitalism, I think, the stock market.
And this comes back to we've made the highest grossing piece of entertainment of all time. Do you know what that needs? That needs an online casino.
Yeah.
I just want to be in that room to goes like sit down in the boardroom. They're all together and just like, what's next for GTA? How about a casino?
Yeah.
Who thought of that?
Yeah, and where we control
it was thought about a long time ago.
All of the money.
There were hints of the casino when the game launched. Like people have been asking about it since that game launched. They're like, "Oh, when's the casino coming? When's the casino coming?" And it took 4 years.
It's people begging for someone to come along and slap regulation on it.
And let's not be silly. There are people out there. I mean, I learned this with the whole Cyberpunk CD Projekt Red thing. There are people out there that are just die-hard fans of these companies. And no matter what they do, No matter what they say, they're always going to back them up. And I guarantee that there are tons and tons of people that are like that for Rockstar. I think you saw that when Red Dead 2 came out. Any even vaguely negative comments about that game, you got beat up by the hive mind. I think that
people won't like the next episode of this show because when Evan's back in Japan, we're doing a deep dive on Red Dead, and we're not exactly going to be that great on it.
Well, people won't care now. It already sold well. The fanboys only care at first because they're like, oh, it's going to keep the game from selling, and my favorite developer or publisher isn't going to make as much money as they would have made. I don't know why they care about that crap, but a lot of people do. So, the truth is, we get angry over this stuff. A lot of their fans are like, hell yeah, give me that casino. I don't care if I never win at blackjack. I just want a casino because you told me I should want a casino.
Well, yeah, and the frustrating thing with that too, like in the beginning of fanboys when they're like upset when a game isn't reviewing really well, it's hard to. There's a fine point now of in consideration of like, well, I think God of War is probably one of the greatest games ever made so far out of my time playing video games. And so if I would say I feel bad because it's not getting good reviews because I think it is a really excellent game that people should experience, you'd get called out for being a fanboy when you're like, no, I'm pretty subjective and I don't like certain games and this game is just that good.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, you do want good products to succeed. Because then you get more good products. I can totally understand that angle for sure.
Okay. And I don't really want to sound like Jim Sterling, but I think he's right on this one. I think more and more governments, either through the morality angle, which is probably me being cynical, the lesser part of it, but I think when governments start seeing the sums of money coming through on something that they can tax and regulate, people should start. Why am I just being crazy here? If I was sitting in the boardroom where Mitch never gets invited, where he can stop people from doing all these stupid things like calling the Xbox One sad.
I got a funny story about that, by the way, before we leave.
So why aren't people thinking the same lines?
I think they are, but it's a risk analysis.
They're getting that sweet dollar.
Yeah, it's a risk analysis, right? The company knows that, okay, we project this amount of money that we're going to get over time. And we know traditionally this is how much you're going to spend in a lawsuit. Traditionally, this is how much you're going to get slapped, percentage-wise with certain fines. Does the risk make sense for the reward? That's all it is.
If you're talking about Belgium, then yeah, who gives a shit about Belgium?
Right.
That's like that everywhere, though. I mean, that's just the way things work. Everything is a cost-benefit analysis. Like when I worked at Viacom, I ran Spike.com, which was the website for Spike TV. But we also ran this viral video site, which actually was the first viral video site before YouTube, called iFilm. And the only reason that they bought iFilm was because Viacom tried to buy YouTube and didn't. Someone else got YouTube, and they're like, well, we need to be in this space, so we're going to buy iFilm, which actually was before YouTube, but YouTube grew bigger because they had more capital, whatever. So anyway, it was one of my responsibilities as VP at Spike Digital Entertainment was to handle that. And for whatever reason, YouTube just had pirated stuff all over. I mean, that's how YouTube built its business, was just pirated TV shows. People were like, I can watch my favorite TV show on this website now. I don't know why, but I can, and that's awesome. For whatever reason, iFilm was the one that ended up getting regulated and targeted the way that YouTube should have been. So we would have like videos from like 8 years ago on iFilm that were before Viacom ever bought it. I mean, it was just like a billion videos on the service. And so how do you monitor all that stuff? And what ended up happening was they turned on ads on a lot of the videos on iFilm, and then people started finding their old videos on there that they had uploaded or whatever, and there were ads being served against them, and they sued Viacom. And what happened was Viacom just settled with all of them. It didn't fight it. It didn't take it to court because it did a cost-benefit analysis, and it said, hey, we're going to spend $300,000, $500,000 on lawyers' fees defending this case against this guy. We can give this guy $20,000 and he'll go away. And that's exactly what they did. And every single person took the deal. And they literally just were handing out $20,000 checks like they were candy for like a year and a half, because it started spreading around the community. Oh, if you can find one of your videos on iFilm, they'll just give you $20,000 to make you go away. And so once they settled the first one, they just started flooding in. And so you're absolutely right. Like, ultimately, you do a cost-benefit analysis, and lawyers' fees are crazy expensive, and a lot of companies are just willing to write a check to make the problem go away. So it's never as simple as it seems on the outside.
There's a quote which I think is unattributed, but it was in a book, and I like it. Lawyers are as ubiquitous and useful to human society as rats. I like to use that one with one of my best friends who happens to be a lawyer. So he starts quoting lawyers back at me, namely an ex-president of the United States called Abraham something or other. Right.
That was an Abraham Lincoln quote?
Yeah. No, that wasn't. I kind of understand what you're getting at, but I'm not sure I understand the analogy, because I get that these companies will weigh up the cost, but do you really want to start having to put stickers on box games or flashed up warnings saying you're now entering the gambling section of this game? Do they say this section is walled off until you put a password in to protect it? Or do they really want to hand over 20 to however much percentage of all revenue that comes from that element of the game?
Well, it's the same thing
to a government.
It's the same thing though. So how much is it going to cost us to pay somebody to implement these features so that we're protecting ourselves for when the regulation does happen, versus how long is it actually going to take to get through Congress or a legislature in another country? And how much money can we make before they slap us with a fine when it actually does become law? And what is that fine going to look like versus what we're going to pay people now?
I think it's a case. I've just had a kind of a slight epiphany. It is an absolute case of they can eat their cake and have it too, because they can make hay whilst the sun shines, and then when they get slapped with the regulation, they can say, well, it was nothing to do with us shareholders. It was that nasty regulator who stopped your dividends from being 20% more than what they were last year.
Yeah.
Well, I think there was an example just recently in the news where Facebook got a $5 billion
$5 billion, yeah.
Really, to them? Is that much money?
Yeah, it is. To anyone, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but like in the amount of time they made their money, they probably made that 3-4 times over already.
I don't know. That's a lot of money, man. That's an unprecedented fine. Yeah. I didn't view that fine as insignificant at all. I was like, whoa, like my eyeballs kind of popped out of my head, because typically like these sites get slaps on the wrist. They're like, go clean up your office and then come back and see us. That's typically the response that they get. Not this time. I don't know. The whole Facebook thing is like, everyone's so shocked that they were giving up your information. Like, I just thought that's the way it always was. Like, do people really think that like their information was safe on Facebook? Like, why did they think whenever they like talk to somebody that they needed new tires, suddenly there's tire ads showing up on Facebook? Like, What did they think? Oh, that's just a coincidence. Like, what? Like, the people that are complaining that like, oh, Facebook gave up all my stuff. It's like, oh, whatever, dude. You knew all along they were giving it up. When you signed up, you were giving up your rights to that crap. Like,
I'd like to refer Shane to my previous statement that people are stupid.
Yeah, there you go. You need just like a little like sample you can fire off. This is at the right time. People are stupid. People are stupid.
Well, and I think people just see an example, we could just use the game industry in general. People believe these companies are in for their best interest, but that's not what they're in for. They're in for the profits. That's all they're in for.
They've got a crowbar out and they want it in your wallet.
Yeah. The sooner you accept that, it's an epiphany, and you will enjoy video games so much more the day you're willing to accept that Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, whoever is not your friend. They don't give a crap about you. All they want is your money. When you finally accept that, games become so different. It's a brand new frontier. It's like you're free. I I don't understand why it's so hard for people to get over the fact that a company wants to make as much money as possible and doesn't give a crap about the people that the money comes from. It's really not that hard to understand. I think for whatever reason, the gaming industry romanticizes companies, unlike most other industries. I think you see a little bit of it with with tech, with Apple and stuff like that. I mean, watch an Apple press conference one time if you really want to upchuck. I think that is like the one press conference that will rival like a Nintendo press conference or a Sony press conference for just completely irrational, unbridled joy over the most minute things. I remember back, I think it was like maybe 2008 when I was at a Sony press conference, and some Sony fanboy was sitting behind me at the press conference, and he was just cheering for everything, like the dumbest crap, like this little like mobile game that had been ported over to like PSP, and he's like, yeah, oh my god, yeah. I was like I actually turned around and looked at him at one point, and I kind of made eye contact with him, and he got the message. He's like, yeah, maybe I'm acting a little crazy. And then after E3 ended, we were on invisible walls, and I brought the guy up. I was like, there is somebody sitting behind me. Like, I don't know if he was paid. I don't know what was going on, but he was just freaking out over the dumbest crap. And that guy ended up hearing the show and like contacting me and got his little like fan site horde of people to try to digitally attack me. And he's like, you're the type of person who shouldn't be there because you don't care as much as I do. It's like, no, that's not how it works, bro. It's not who cares the most. That's not how this whole thing shakes out.
I'm just laughing because you'd be like, I would have said behind him if he was behind me doing that. I'd be like, yeah, you're going to buy that mobile game? You better buy it because I expect you to purchase it. If you're going that crazy, I expect your money to come out of your pocket. Oh, you don't have any? Oh, I'm so sorry. Then you shouldn't be cheering for that game.
Yeah, it's I've been dealing with this for a long time. So even though I've talked about it a billion times, you can see I still have pent up aggression about it. I have to let it go.
It was done very subtly.
Yeah.
There wasn't much further there. I think next time maybe you should say it like you mean it.
Yeah.
McWomble, I think you do have competition for the angriest person on the show.
Yep. Well, you should have known me coming on this show. Come on. You watch 3 hours of me a week. You should know.
I skipped the whole Dragon Quest Builders section because I don't give a shit.
Oh, really? Well, I'll say this. So I was not very high on that game in Game Face. And then when I got back, like Vincent, who's writing the eval for it, sent me this email. And he was like, I like it a lot more than you. And, it's going to be interesting when we go to edit the review. And he's like, you didn't make it very far. I was like, I don't know. I played like 15 hours of the game. Like, that's a lot.
I thought you were going to say for a second, in the same way as the guy you had behind you, Vincent, contacted you and said, I should be on Game Face. You don't care about Dragon Quest.
No, he was just talking about my impressions of Dragon Quest Builders 2. And he's like, I like it a lot more than you do. And it's going to be interesting when you go to edit my eval to see how you react. So.
All right. Some kind of, I think, well, I'm slightly exhausted.
I'm just getting warmed up, bro. We're only at the hour and 42-minute mark. This is where I start to hit my stride, man. What are you talking about? Amateurs. You guys are fading. You're like, oh my God, we're past 90 minutes. You wouldn't survive on Game Face.
Well, I thought I was thinking about Mitch's wallet because we've clocked into the next hour. So
no. That's all good.
Oh, I have to say, Vincent is watching right now, and he just put in the comments. Yeah. I'm here listening to this.
Well, I was going to ask Shane's kind of getting off the kind of heavy stuff. Other than Vincent, who is your favorite sifter?
Did you ask me that?
Yeah.
Oh, I would never ever answer that.
Oh, is that like saying if you ask the parent which child?
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly the same question. I mean, I don't look at you guys as my kids or whatever, but I look at you guys as like part of my family. So I would never, ever, ever say that. I could maybe share my least favorite.
I would like to hear this.
Well, there's so many of them who come on under this kind of N00001. And then
no, but those people leave. Like there's been some bad ones that have stuck around for a really long time, and we've had to like jump through like a billion hoops waiting for them to basically break our terms of service because some trolls are really smart. Like they will go and they'll look at your terms of service, and then they'll make sure that they're being a douchebag, but they're doing it within the confines of your terms of service. And
That's just too much fucking effort. Get
I know
life.
some people care that much about being an asshole. I don't get it. But yeah, we've had a few guys like that where they're just like, but I'm not breaking the TOS. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're doing, man. And they play on the fact that I play it down the line, you know, that they know people have figured out that like Shane isn't just going to boot me because he doesn't like me. He's actually going to adhere to the site's terms of service and do things the way they should be done. And there have been some people who have taken advantage of that over SIFTD's history, until they finally slip up enough times. And it is very rewarding to finally send them that final ban notification. I hate to admit it, but it's true. Like, when you deal with somebody, and the other problem too is that you have other folks like you on the site who are great, and it's negatively...
Well, just me personally.
Well, all you guys are all awesome. But it's negatively impacting their experience on the site. And I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. It's like, I want to boot these people off immediately, but I feel like I would be cheating to do that by not following the rules that I established. If somebody else had set them up and they weren't working, then I would be like, oh, well, that's their problem. But I set all this stuff up. So if it's not working, it's on me. So it's hard for me to get too angry about people that are jumping around the rules that I created in the first place. So it's much easier to pick the worst members of SIFTD than to pick the best. I would never do that.
I think one thing we're pretty good at as a group of people is regulating those people ourselves.
Yeah.
Either through not engaging with them, or it's very easy for me to get in touch with Alex or Tomb Raiders or some, and just say, this guy's being a dick for the sake of being a dick.
You guys are very helpful. Like, we have the self-reporting tools on SIFTD. So if someone's being a douche, you can just click that little exclamation point and we get the reports. And that all matters, by the way. Those of you guys who use SIFTD, like, you may think, oh, I'm clicking this report and it's going into the ether and no one sees it. It all matters. All those reports are compiled for each user. So when a user does something especially egregious, we have their report from the first day they signed up, and we can see every single time what they were reported for and the exact copy of what they wrote that people were offended by. So when we go
excessive mentions of the Yakuza franchise.
Yeah. So when we go to like figure out whether someone should get a ban or not, we have all that information to use to figure out whether we should drop the ban hammer or not. So even if you're on SIFTD and you're being a douchebag every once in a while and you think you're getting away with it, you're not getting away with it. We're seeing it all, and we're just compiling all that information for a later date in case we have to pull the trigger. So
building the case to prosecute.
Yeah, basically. And it, you know what? Every time we've banned someone, we've never had someone fight back.
I've just got this picture in my mind now of Shane doing the kind of thing from Ace Attorney when he's going to ban someone. Objection.
Got another screenshot to use.
There you go. That's a good one. But honestly, for the most part, everyone on SIFTD is really awesome. Like, the fact that I can remember specific people who were really bad, I think that shows you how awesome our community is. Like, GT, I mean, literally, like 70% of our audience was awful. I hate to say it, but that's true. Like, I would never even read the comments on Invisible Walls. Didn't even read them. Not once. Like, well, the first couple times I did to see if people liked the show, but then the views kind of affirmed that, and I didn't need to, like, see people's response anymore because it was just a sewage pile of comments, Invisible Walls. Like, after the first couple episodes, I never read the comments again. It's nice being able to be on SIFTD with a smaller audience, a more curated audience, where I can actually engage with you. Like, I never could have done something like this at Game Trailers either. Like, being able to just pick a few people or work with a few people from our community to do something like it just wouldn't have happened because everybody else would be so angry that we weren't doing it with them. And there's so many people and they can build like a little coalition of anger to attack you. Like, my boss got so many emails sent to him to fire me. Like, he'd compile them, and he'd be like, I've been compiling them. We've got about 30 now. We got 30 emails of people that want you fired. And he'd just laugh it off because, he worked with me every day. He's like, dude, this place would fall apart if you weren't here. So
I've changed my email address since
counter, basically, of like, let's get to 100. Let's go.
Yeah. So, but it is crazy. I mean, there's a certain segment of people that get angry enough and are delusional enough that they don't just go into the comments. Like they'll go to like the corporate website of Viacom,
find them,
and find like who my supervisor is, and then go into the directory and find his email or call his like office phone. Like, there's some psychos out there, and I'm glad that that's one part of this industry that I don't have to deal with so much anymore. I deal with it a little bit on YouTube, but even our YouTube users are pretty awesome, man. Like most of the comments, once we got past the whole cyberpunk thing, and which took a year, mind you, I was still getting messages from angry CD Projekt Red fans a year after. That's just insane. But once we got past that, it's like most of our users on YouTube are awesome. And part of that could be, and here's a secret, if you're a douchebag in our comments on YouTube, you'll never leave a comment on our videos there again. Like, we're not going to mess around modding with you. We just click hide users' comments from channel, and we never have to deal with you again. So if somehow people who watch us on YouTube are watching this, and you're like, why do my comments never appear on there? The chances are it's because you acted like an asshole at some point, and we just permanently hid your comments. So
no, it's only Vincent and Mike's Q are watching this right now, I think.
So basically, you're saying that that button is your affiliation of Michael Pachter's. Thank you so much for your kind words.
It is, yeah, exactly.
Which I pray I never get those words from a Michael Pachter ever.
Well, if you don't act like a douchebag, you won't. That's the whole thing. It's like, just don't be a jerk. Is it that hard? Like, for some people, it is, apparently.
Because people are stupid.
Yeah. That's probably the most prophetic quote from this whole episode.
Yeah. Well, the Coalition of Anger could be the spin-off podcast.
Coalition of Anger.
I like it.
That's a good name, actually. It would probably be like the most watched podcast on YouTube.
It's more like a metal band than a podcast.
Yeah. The comments would just be a big sewage dump. You just have to turn off comments for every video.
No, that's the whole point. It feeds into it, so you're just like, it's.
Well, no, if you turn off the comments, that will make them even angrier. See, you're just perpetuating it.
Yeah, we'll only allow one comment a show.
One. That would be hilarious. Because if you just allow the one, then everybody thinks that they are allowing comments, but they're not allowing mine. What is going on? Hilarious.
Or we could charge. We could pay if you want. If you want a comment, you can pay for it.
Yeah. Microtransactions.
Actually,
surprise mechanics.
Yeah. We'll put all the comments into a random number generator, and everyone's got to pay for a chance of having their comment added.
It's like a raffle. Yeah. A raffle of hate. The hate raffle.
That's the spin-off group from the Coalition of Anger.
I think this is $1 billion idea right now, guys.
Yes.
I think we just did it.
Yep.
We came up with like
a couple. Deal with the VCs though. I don't want to deal with them. First, talk about a bunch of assholes.
We literally just came up with a company and then the options within the company of a hate raffle.
There we go. $1 billion business, guaranteed. You know what? There aren't enough websites that feed into the hate. I mean, that could be a lucrative business. If you think about it.
Really scary to think about.
It is. Do you want to be involved in it or not? Probably not. But somebody could get rich from it. I guarantee it.
Well, you think talk radio shows do a good job of it?
No, that's true. Yeah, I mean, they kind of peddle in it for sure.
I guess you could hide your faces and do caricatures like invisible walls, but just not put your actual face on there.
Right.
Like I'll put Shane Satterfield's face and you'll think it's Shane, but it's not Shane.
And since it's a cartoon, you can get away with it. Absolutely.
All right. Do we have anything else to talk about in terms of the game industry?
Is there anything left on the rundown?
No, I think that's it.
But I do have a story since we're talking about the games industry, and we talked about the sad and the hate. I think I'll a little bit. So I ordered. So thank you for Amazon. Prime Day for other people competing with that, because I ordered an Xbox One S, a 1 terabyte one with. It's called the Starter Edition. So it came with 3 months of Game Pass and a full year of Xbox Live.
Nice.
And so all for $200.
Oh, wow.
So I was like,
Wow.
I'll take that deal in a heartbeat. So I ordered it, and what I got, McWomble, was an Xbox One sad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So at the moment, I am.
Was it a special edition one with your name on it saying thanks for the idea?
It's engraved.
Yeah. So it was like it was through Newegg, which Newegg themselves has been great with me. They're doing it like Amazon does, where you can buy like from a third party within the aggregate of that website, and the actual like company that sold me the item has not gotten back to me within the business days that they would. So I had to contact Newegg, and so now they're on it. So I will give you an update, and if I ever will get this real Xbox, or was it a fake advertisement? I don't know.
Any of you guys played the Gears 5 tech test this weekend? It's going on again. What do you think, McWomble? Yeah, I was wondering if you felt the same way I did. I was not inspired by Gears 5 at all last weekend.
Well, after E3, Gears 5 was on his I don't give a shit list. So.
Oh. Well, that explains it. So you already had a preconceived notion about the game before you played it.
Yeah, because it's Gears.
Yeah. Okay. So you've never been a big Gears fan?
No. Bear with me a second. I'm just going to put a bit more light in the room. But...
It's getting dark out there, apparently.
There we go.
There we go.
Berkough, you look like you're in a cave.
You know, you got to protect yourself from the Vegas heat. So.
From the Vegas UV rays.
Yeah.
Through the screen.
Yeah. Oh, he's got his Titans lid on.
Yeah, so actually I went to trade in Mario and Rabbids, and one of the people in the store said, do you want to play the demo of Gears 5 for free?
Oh, cool.
So if you've got a store card, they said you can play the demo for free for half an hour. So I was waiting for a friend to go out for a few drinks last week. So he was running late, so I sat in there and played half an hour's worth of the demo, and it was probably half an hour too long.
Yeah,
it was
I didn't really enjoy
piece
it
of
either.
crap.
I wouldn't call it a piece of crap, but it definitely isn't.
The production
starting to get a little
quality's
long
there,
in the tooth. That whole
just dull.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that you could call something dull that has a chainsaw that will saw an enemy in half. But you're right. After you've seen it like a billion times, it's like, it's not really doing it for me anymore. I was disappointed in Gears 5, but hopefully the campaign's better. I need it to get a perfect 10 for me to have a chance in our fantasy league with Matt. It's insane, the stuff that happens to me in this league against Matt. Like, year after year, just insane stuff keeps happening. It's like they delayed 2 of my games at E3. It's over. It's like, and then in our fantasy league, which I got to start talking about, you know, as far as like on Game Face to get people involved again, our SIFTD fantasy league. McWomble, do you realize that I have gone to the bowl every year and never won? I just realized that like a month ago.
Well, you lost to me in the first year.
I have lost every bowl. I've made it to the bowl all 3 years and never won.
Yeah, I got killed with injuries. This last season, my injuries just killed me.
Yeah. I just have rotten luck with fantasy leagues on SIFTD for whatever reason, it appears. Doesn't matter what they're for.
What was it Matt said to you? If you had a luck score, it would be -1.
Yeah, if I was an RPG character, my luck would be 0. I agree with that for sure. Oh, by the way, also my car got hit the other day coming here.
Oh, Jesus.
After it gets stolen and I get it back, I'm sitting at a stoplight, stopped, and the guy behind me just goes and hits me.
Oh man,
I was
and then the guy like tried to like pay me $300 to make it go away, and it turned into this weird thing where he wouldn't give me his ID and his insurance card, and I had to basically threaten to call the cops if he wouldn't give them to me. Like, and it turns out, anyway,
I was going to say, have you one now low-jacked your car?
I have not, actually, no.
2, how many times a day do you check to see if it's still parked in the same place?
Well, like our apartment, we have a garage underneath our building. It's like gated and secure. So I feel good while it's there. But I will say this, every time I come back to my car now, I get this like sigh of relief when I see it. Like if I'm out, like if we drove it to a restaurant or someplace or a store, when I come out of the building and I see it where I left it, like I get this like warm feeling that comes over me still. It's really bizarre. But yeah, it's like when you go through that high and low of emotions in the span of like 14 hours or whatever it was, it leaves an impact for sure. But I'm very, very appreciative of my car now. I'll tell you that much too. I hadn't washed it in like 4 months when it got stolen. I was just like, I've had it for so long and it's kind of old. I'm like, I don't really care anymore. And then when it got stolen, suddenly I cared about it again. I went out and got it like detailed and like waxed and all, and then someone hit it. So there you go. And now it's going into the shop in like 4 days. So anyway, I know you guys all care about my personal turmoil.
Yeah, we do. Because we live our lives vicariously through.
McWomble, you're pretty funny, man. You should take it on the road, bro.
I just want to shoot someone in the comments mentioned our fantasy football league. So he says, who is it? Guido Bermetz? I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah, though.
Yeah, he just says, hope it happens again. Looking forward to it.
You know, I have not been able to get the trophy to the new champion. He won the league and he will not respond to anything. I have sent him literally like 5 or 6 direct messages on ESPN. I can't figure out what his user is on the site, so I just keep emailing his ESPN account and he never replies. So
wait,
the trophy.
What's his user? Say it now, and then we'll shoot it on Sifted, and then he can.
I don't remember what his name was on ESPN. I don't know what his name is on Sifted. That's the problem. Like, I can't figure out who he is. Because I saw his email address in the fantasy football site and then tried to put it into our database to search for it, and he uses a different email address on Sifted. So I don't know. I don't know what. I guess he's just like, I'm just here to win, and that's it. I don't need the pageantry or the
win
glory.
And go home.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what he did. So been trying to get in touch with him. Hopefully the defending champ will return to try to defend his crown, but it doesn't look good right now.
Black Sierra?
Sierra?
No, that wasn't his name.
I don't know. Just he posted it. Okay.
I'll mention it on Game Face in the next week or two because we're going to have to start organizing the league again.
Yeah. No, I think the main thing that we learned from that is I was the first ever winner.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You were. I get to win.
Say, you made an amazing video post it of going, I think I lost it. With the hand cameo from the wife where you just get her hand. That's all you get.
At least we know she exists.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go and apologize to my wife at some point and say, I know when you said you'd like to watch a film on the Saturday evening, after I'd finished talking to Matt, Mitch, and Shane for an hour.
Come on. You knew if I was on this, it wasn't going to be an hour. It's impossible. It's not going to happen.
I thought it was going to be a tight hour. I was just like...
Not how I roll. Well, I had fun. I hope you guys did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm glad to see coming back is today's high score.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I was really bummed whenever we had to cancel that. That is one of the most exciting parts of getting our new studio back, is being able to do that show again. I really think it could be. I can't believe still no one else has done it. Like, that was the part that hurt the worst. I was like, okay, we're ending this when it's starting to get momentum, but somebody else can pick this up and it could be huge before I ever get to do it again, and nobody has done it. So
there was one show where I'd broken my own rule about drinking responsibly. And I think I messaged you and just said, just cut me out.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. But I'm excited about that getting going again. Having the ability to, if Matt is out of town or whatever, having the ability to still do Game Face no matter what now is huge. Having a place for developers to come to do interviews, being able to develop new shows, having a place to stream games that's not at my apartment. There's a billion reasons why it's such a good thing that we have our studio back. So
which really since the streaming room is now called the shower.
Yeah.
I do have to request that there has to be some kind of shower towel
related
tile.
item.
No, I thought about actually going to the hardware store and buying
Buying
like a
curtain.
stand-up shower head and hiding it behind the glass so you can just kind of see that it's a shower head. And I told my wife that, and she's like, "Oh, that's a terrible idea." I was like,
No,
I
that's
don't know. It's kind of
and
funny.
unique, you know.
no, I love it because it's like we're just like he just never gets out of the shower.
Yeah.
He's in the shower all day long.
I could even like drape a towel over like the side or whatever. We'll see what we do with it. We'll see also if like some of these people get pissed off that their faces are a part of our set. It's like we'll just start eliminating them and see who the last cool video game developer is. There may not be any. We'll see.
Which I was telling Berkough earlier when making the those images to hype up the countdown. I grabbed that image with the from Ash Shane Anything, and when you said when you said like, oh, you can't really see it when you're up close of the image, I was like, yeah, I agree, because when I was editing that thing, I had to zoom really back to go, oh yeah, that is Shane's face.
That's the same style, actually. Yeah, it's the same Photoshop filter that we use for our graphics here. We're doing a bunch of stuff too. We're working on a new graphics package for Game Face. We're working on a new show open for Game Face. We just wanted to get the show out and back as quickly as we could, because obviously everything we do is time sensitive when people are paying on a month-to-month basis.
Oh yeah.
So we just wanted to get the show back as quickly as possible, but there's a bunch of other changes and stuff coming to Game Face, so stay tuned for that.
How is the Patreon doing?
Terrible. I mean, honestly, relatively speaking, it's bad. It's at like $4,100 right now. It's basically the lowest.
Oh, it's down about 400, isn't it? From
not even that long ago.
I'll shut up now. I don't want to kind of.
I mean, it's down. If you remember when we launched our Patreon and when it started, it was at like almost $6,000. So we've lost like 20% of our Patreon since it launched, and that's pretty typical. I did do a quick
calculation a little while ago to say, kind of based on the number of patrons versus how much you're actually getting. Looking at some of the other Patreons out there doing video game related stuff, and we're a generous bunch.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, Johnny Hurricane makes up for a lot of that. I mean, when you have one person giving you that much money per month, the average is just going to skyrocket. So Johnny is very, very generous. I can't even.
He's your second favorite sifter.
He probably. I mean, if somebody held me at gunpoint and asked me who my favorite sifter was, I would have to say Johnny Hurricane. I'd be an idiot not to. I mean, you'd be a moron to not reward the person who has supported you so much. So yeah, we love. I don't know. Do people know his real name? I don't know if I should say it. No. Okay, I won't then. I love Johnny. Johnny's not his real name, but I love Johnny. He's a great guy, and I appreciate what he does so much. But that is what's like bloating our dollar per patron the most is the fact that he's given so much every month. So
something Vincent did point out, which it's almost like we're doing Game Face right now.
Yeah, it's kind of morphing into it, isn't it?
He did say that we're near the highest amount of patrons
for this year.
Yeah. The number of patrons has in the last couple of weeks has gone up a lot. But one thing I found with our Patreon is like, as soon as it goes up a little bit, it's like other people see it goes up and they drop their pledge down. I'm not kidding. Like, I've seen it over and over and over again. They're like, oh, wait a minute. Now they're making an extra $100. Well, I'm not going to give as much. And it like within 2 days, it goes right back down to where it was. Like, it's literally been hovering at 41 or 42 for like 10 months. Like, it'll go up a little bit. It'll go down a little bit. It'll go up. I mean, the only thing that really helps is Twitch Prime. That really is kind of a lifesaver for us. Like, if it weren't for Twitch Prime, we would have went out of business a long time ago. So it is what it is. I got to get people to do it, because last month we had a terrible month for Twitch Prime. And so for me, Twitch Prime directly affects my life, because whatever amount of money we get for Twitch Prime that month is what money I do get or don't get. So it has a big impact on me whether people do that or not. It's crazy, that people won't do it. Like, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's like, if you like our stuff, why not just take a minute, or not even a minute? Like, after you've done it the first time, it literally takes like 2 seconds. So I don't know. it is what it is. But here we are, and this is the start of a new dawn for us, and I'm excited about it. And I'm not gonna go back and look at the past and rehash problems we've had or anything. I'm just trying to look forward and be really positive. So.
And I think one thing
You sound like that was an extract from All or Nothing. Yeah, we lost to the Patriots, but I'm not going to dwell on the past. And...
We're going to move forward and put one foot in front of the other, take it one day at a time.
I'm not going to use any cliches, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the one thing I can say is that, to be honest, Shane, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but without you and creating SIFTD, McWomble, myself, and Berkough would have never met.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that part of the site. Not just for you guys.
You're happy with yourself.
Like it's awesome that I'm glad that I have new friends. Like people come to LA now and they're like, "Hey, I'm coming. You want to hang out?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like let's go get a beer. Like it's expanded my circle of friends in addition to all yours. That is undoubtedly the most rewarding. That's why I love our community podcast, because I can see that what we're doing is inspiring people to do it. Instead of just sitting on the sidelines and watching other people do it. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of with SIFTD is watching you guys kind of tear it up.
I forgot to do the YouTube thing about subscribe, ring the bell, and all that bollocks.
I never do that. That's another thing that we need to get better at. Like we fought against like all the stupid crap that YouTubers do, but we need to do it. It works. I mean,
as soon as when I did my channel for the last, was it before I took a little bit of a break the last couple of weeks, I've been saying hit the subscribe button. All of a sudden my subscribers went up.
Yeah, it's insane, but it works. And like
oh, wouldn't it be common sense to just hit the button?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Like
but nope.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I like this video. I want to see it every time it comes out. Close. Like, no, hit the button, dude. Like, but it goes back again to what McWomble said. Like, most people are stupid.
Including me for not including saying that. What we should say, I missed out this in the intro as well. If anyone would like to be on the show,
yes, absolutely.
Message Berkough or myself. We won't be paying you $100 to do so. Just deal with it. But yeah, we are going to do. I think we're going to have a few more people on. Michael Raphael's going to come back on.
Oh, good.
We're going to get Liam, who's known as Tomb Raiders. He's going to come on. Tom Breeders.
That's how I say it too.
Yeah, we're going to get those guys back on, and we're going to get Evan back on when he's back in Japan, and Satterfield again when he's off his European sales trip. And we're going to do a deep dive into Red Dead 2. Yeah.
I think that's it. On that note, gentlemen, do we want to go ahead and end it?
Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
whatever.
I'm here already, so
something for you. You just gotta get at that $100 patron level and just shoot them a message. The process was very slick and smooth and easy, so don't feel like it's intimidating. Going like, oh, he's gonna take forever. He's never gonna get back to me. But no, he literally got back to me within an hour. It was insane.
And you don't really just get an hour. Like, basically, I'll hang out with you until you don't want to hang out with me anymore. That's basically what just happened. We're at 2 hours and 12 minutes, and these guys are like, okay, we're done with Shane now. Let's get on with our Saturday.
Yeah, my wife is home.
One of the things.
I got 3 houses to play, so I'm...
Evan, you need to sort your shit out, mate. You've been paying a $50 level for God knows how many months. And you don't even have to beat Shane at a video game. It's not beat Shane anymore. Yeah. You can just play a co-op game with him.
Yeah.
Or
I wonder what the exchange rate is for that, for his yen to the dollar.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
It's going to be better than the pound, I can assure you that.
Well, I mean, the pound is about to take a beating here soon. You better convert your money now.
Well, when Scotland declare independence, I'll be there applying for my Scottish passport.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, you're good.
And we're out.